Hello my lovely friends, and welcome back to another video. Now, it's been a while since I've done anything to do with investing, and as you know, this channel is all about personal finance and everything around money. So today I wanted to come to you with a video about the lessons that I've learned as a newbie investor, and trust me, I am still very much a beginner. I am nowhere even near the intermediate or let alone an expert level. But I thought I would share with you some of the lessons that I've learned in the hopes that this will help you out on your journey as well. If you haven't done so already, please make sure to check out my video where I show you how I started my investment journey with just £1. And you know what? My portfolio is doing so much better than I could ever have imagined. So I am starting this series of investing, and I will share with you the real numbers of how I'm investing, how all my stocks are performing. Some stocks are not doing too well, to be honest with you. I've lost a bit of money, but some stocks are performing fantastic and I'm making more than I could ever imagine. So please make sure to hit that like button, and also please make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can be notified when those videos go live, because you will want to see some of these changes, right? But today I really wanted to focus on some of the lessons that I've learned. First thing that I will mention is to always make sure you are picking stocks and shares where you can make a profit. Now, I know sometimes it can be that you want to stick to a company or a product that you absolutely like, but if that company is not doing well, you are not going to be making money. And for me, this was a lesson that I had to learn, because I wanted to invest in a company and I wanted to back a company. But in this instance, I want to make money and I want my money to go further than I could ever imagine. So it's important to make sure you are picking stocks and shares that profit rather than stocks and shares that you have a fondness for, because that might not necessarily be the best strategy to go for. This is a decision you have to make for yourself, but I would say if you do want to make money, you don't have to like the company or the product that they're doing. You just have to know how much profit are you going to make from it and how is their shares performing. The second thing I would recommend is to make sure you always add to your winners. Now, it can be so easy to see one of your stocks is performing really well and you're happy with it, and then you can start to think about, okay, what else do I need to buy? But if your stock is performing well, add to that position, because if you can see an upward trend and it's getting better and better and better, buy more of that share. Do not sit on it. Make sure you are increasing your position so that you can make even more money. Now, I will do a video about what strategy I use to research a company and to look at trends of how a stock is performing, and at exactly what points do I increase on my position in each of those. It's a beginner strategy, it's not an expert strategy, but it's working for me. The third thing that I have learned is that when people tell you to hold your position long term, they mean hold it for years and even decades. So when I first thought of it, I thought I kind of understood it, but looking back, I realized that I was thinking about trading and day trading, where like holding a position long term could be like a couple of days, even a couple of weeks. But the reality is actually when you're investing, holding for a long time means literally holding for years on end so that you can gain the most out of that investment. And it's so important to make sure that if you are purchasing something, you know that you're going to be holding up for the long time, even if it dips, and if you know that actually over time it will get better and better and better, then you just hold out for that stock and you don't change your position. So you need to understand that for some of your stocks and shares, you need to decide whether or not they're there for the short term or they're there for the long term. Short term, medium term, long term. That you decide what it is for you. For me, long term means I'll have to hold it for many years, maybe even coming up to decades, whereas my short term maybe will be like a year or so, and then my medium term is like between, I don't know, a year and 3 years. But you can make that decision for you. But when people say hold it long term, they mean hold it for years on end. Another thing that I will say is to always make sure that you have a separate emergency fund. The last thing you want to have is to be in a position where you need money, and the only way for you to make money is to liquidate all your stocks and shares. So it's important to make sure that the money that you are investing is completely separate from your emergency fund. You should always have a certain amount of money that you set aside to cover your expenses for a certain time period. Most people say 3 months, but I would actually say try and make sure you have an emergency fund set aside for 6 to 12 months. Imagine if you had a whole year's worth of expenses covered, sitting there waiting should anything happen. And I think in the light of the current climate that we're living in, it's so important to make sure you have your emergency fund aside. But we're not going to go too much into that. I've got videos on end about emergency funds, so please do check that out if you want a bit more information. But if you are going to take investing seriously, please make sure you have a separate pot of money that you set aside specifically for investing, and that way those two are separate, because the last thing you want to do is to be making money and be in a really good position and then have to liquidate every single thing, sell everything to make sure you can keep up with your living expenses. So always make sure you do that. And I personally have done that. I've made sure that I have a separate investment account. I put money in every single week to make sure that I'm constantly investing. It doesn't have to be much. It can even be like £1 a day that you set aside, but that's £1 that you were specifically putting aside for investing. And that way you're not in a position where you have to lose everything, you know? And then finally, the last thing, and probably the most important thing, is to have an investment buddy. And this is really, really important when you start on your investment journey, because unless you're starting as a pro, which most people won't, and I know most people are in the same position as me, which is like, I'm kind of interested in the stock market, but I don't really know what I want to do. I kind of want to do it and try it out with little money and then maybe go into bigger money. Make sure you get somebody who is also either already investing or is interested in investing, and you can learn together and support one another. Because trust me, you will invest in some stocks and shares that lose you money, because you might make the wrong investment choices and that can freak you out. Trust me, I've been there. I remember when I first started using Trading 212 and I thought I kind of understood what the companies were doing, and I invested my first £100 and it was just a sea of red. And I panicked and I was like, oh no, I'm just lost £100 and I'm losing money. What is going wrong? But it was so important for me to have someone who I could sit down and talk to, who then explained to me, actually, if you hold, a lot of these are really, really good companies that you've invested in. It's just that you've bought a really high price. You've got to look at the current climate, and actually if you hold them out for a long term, you'll actually get a gain. If you keep them for a lot longer, you will actually start to make money over time. So it's not necessarily that now. You need to think about the now and think about, oh no, tomorrow. So it's really, really important just to have somebody there where you can bounce off ideas with. You can talk to them about it. You can just understand and think about, should we invest in this company? Should we not? And a different perspective is always really, really helpful. So those are some of the lessons that I have learned as a beginner, and I really hope you've enjoyed this video. Please let me know if you have. Let me know in the comments below what lessons you have learned. What tips would you give people who are starting off on their investment journey? Please make sure to check out these videos, which will show you everything that I'm doing around investing and how my journey has panned out, and how I'm hoping that by using my investment strategy, I can retire before I'm 40. And until the next video, thank you so much for all your support. Do take care. Bye.